Welcome to Module 2 of AP Environmental Science. This module covers environmental indicators, which is a way that environmental scientists kind of judge how healthy or kind of the overall state or condition of a particular environmental system. And it also discusses a little bit about sustainability. It just kind of touches on that topic. Now, the environment and ecosystems provide what are called ecosystem services. These are things that benefit humans either directly or indirectly, and sometimes not really at all. Now, an ecosystem service is something like clean water. Obviously, humans benefit from clean water because we need to drink it in order to survive, but a whole host of other organisms also benefit from that. But ecosystem services can also be things like timber. So humans harvest that timber in order to build structures, to build their homes, to build businesses, and to build infrastructure, and even to just create products, like paper products or pencils and all that kind of things. The environmental indicators essentially tell us how well we're managing those ecosystem services. Now there's 5 global environmental indicators, and the major ones. You need to know all 5 of them and their overall trend. Now I'll give you a hint. On table 2.2, it goes through all 5 of them, tells you the trend, tells you what the outlook for the future is, and kind of that overall impact on the environment, what it looks like. You can make sure to kind of remember, study, jot this table down into your notes. We'll come back to it. All right, we're going to go through each of the 5 and briefly dive in a little bit deeper to understand what they're talking about. Start with biodiversity. Now, biodiversity can be broken into 3 categories. Biodiversity is kind of the variety of life, and life can be classified on that smallest level up to the largest level. And when we're looking at this biodiversity, we start at the smallest level of what is the genetic diversity. So what is the variety of DNA within a particular species? But then we can move up a step and we can look at a particular area and figure out the species diversity. So looking at how many different species, so how many different types of organisms all live in one particular area. So in this area, we've got the woodpeckers, the bears, the chipmunks as our animal species, but we also have some moss growing on that decaying log. We got some fungi, got some trees and some shrubs and some flowers. And you can see that there's a whole bunch of different types of species, different categories of species interacting. So that increases our species diversity. But we can even go a step further and go to ecosystem diversity. And that ecosystem diversity, that's that largest scale. So that's saying, all right, we have alpine forests, we have deserts, we have brushland and grassland, we have different zones within the aquatic systems as well. And these are all contributing to the overall biodiversity. Now, sometimes biodiversity goes wrong and we start to get extinction. But sometimes biodiversity is going great and we get what's called speciation. So speciation means new species arriving, and they're arriving because of mutations within the genetics is really how speciation happens, if you have to boil it down to one thing. Extinction is the loss of an entire group of species. Usually that happens when their ecosystem, so their habitat's being destroyed, or because they're having some kind of bottleneck within their DNA, within their genetics. So their genetic pool gets narrowed, and then some disease comes through or some type of event, and that wipes out that remaining population, so we lose our species. So usually species, the variety of species is how we tend to classify biodiversity, but it can be put into these other categories. All right. Food production, that's our second environmental indicator. Everybody needs to eat. Most people enjoy eating. I sure enjoy eating, especially cookies. Oh my goodness. I'm a sucker for chocolate chip cookies. Now, food production relies on a healthy soil. So in order to grow food, pretty much all of our food is grown in soil other than things that are grown from the aquatic systems, which those are relying on good water quality. If you don't have healthy soil, you can't grow food. Just kind of bottom line there. But we also need to look at how can we grow enough food to feed our growing population with the current land that's available, so that we're not destroying ecosystems and influencing our biodiversity. If you look at how humans are doing with that, you can see that overall, this is per capita, so per person, the amount of food that we're producing, so the amount of grain is usually how scientists classify it, it's been increasing pretty steadily. I mean, it's not a significant jump, but it's pretty steady. So that's good, right? We're able to feed our population. Well, we're actually making more food per person than we did in the past. So that's kind of means that our demand for food is growing, so people are tending to eat more. Our next global environmental indicator is the average global surface temperature and the carbon dioxide concentration. This is where we get into the greenhouse effect. So greenhouse gases are these gases in the atmosphere that trap heat. But what we're seeing with this as an environmental indicator is that as we are increasing the amount of greenhouse gases, so that light blue layer, as we're adding more to that, the amount of heat that's getting trapped underneath that greenhouse layer is increasing. So our global surface temperature is increasing, and that's clearly as a result of carbon dioxide concentrations. Now I'm going to throw a vocab word at you that we use throughout the entire course. It is right here. Anthropogenic. You need to know this word. It's very important. It means it's coming from human activities. So that anthropo means human. So anthropogenic means human generated. Now humans are generating a lot more carbon dioxide and putting it in the atmosphere than there ever has been in the past. And that's what this graph is. Oops. Sorry about all the zooming in and out. Oh, get rid of the glare. There we go. So what you can see is back before the Industrial Revolution, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was pretty steady and pretty low. Then the Industrial Revolution hit, and we started to see the significant increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide. So that's the blue line. The way that we know what it was in the past is by looking at ice core data, and we'll get into that in another part of this course in a different module. The global temperature, that's the red line. We have the records starting in the late 1800s. We can see that the global average temperature is increasing right along with that carbon dioxide concentration. So we can see those moving together. So it's pretty clear that they're just going to keep going up. All right, a couple more. Human population. As we are producing more food, we are able to make more babies. So our human population is going to go up. Now, when we have more people, we're going to need more resources. Right now, the human population is over 7 billion, and it's predicted to hit 11 billion by the year 2100. Not all that long. In your lifetime, it's going to easily reach 9 billion. Easily, no question in my mind. We might even hit 10 billion in your lifetime. But this begs the question, can the planet really sustain that many people? Our amount of food per person, yeah, we've been increasing, but can we keep that up? I don't know. But we're also, in order to feed and house and allow people to have these luxuries that we're used to or we want and desire, we need to use resources. So the rate at which resources are used is called resource depletion. It's been going up. We've been increasing the amount of resources used every single day because the population is getting bigger. And we classify kind of this growth and this pattern of consumption as development. So development is really defined as that improving the human condition, making our well-being better and advancing our economy. Now, is develop always a good thing to do? Well, if you're looking economically speaking, yes. It's great for the economy to have improved development. If you're looking from an environmental perspective, it's not necessarily always a good thing. Sometimes it is, but not always. We throw in another vocab word here called per capita. Per capita means per person. All right. Now that's the 5 major global indicators, and they're summarized here in the table for you to look at to remember, make sure you got all the key details. Now the impact that humans have on the environment, it's not equal everywhere in the world. More developed countries tend to have a far greater per capita impact on the environment than a developing country. So think somebody who is able to drive an SUV to and from work every day, or school every day. You're able to afford to use gasoline. That's extracted fossil fuels. In burning those, you're emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that's having a negative impact on the environment. Now you compare that to somebody in a poor country who has to walk everywhere they go. They're not burning those fossil fuels. They're going to have a smaller impact on the environment. So more developed countries have a far greater per capita impact when compared to developing countries. In order to address the way that developing countries are growing, we need to think in terms of sustainable development. So sustainable development is looking at developing and improving the human condition without sacrificing the environment in the process. And in order to do this, it requires an ecocentric worldview. So looking at the world through the lens that the environment, it's not just important to benefit me, but it's important because the environment is important as a whole. It's not just because I'm benefiting, it's not just because a specific endangered beautiful little butterfly is benefiting. It's because the world has value and the environment has value by itself. So by adopting that ecocentric worldview and doing sustainable development practices that put the environment first and people kind of second, with the idea of reducing our impact on the earth. And the way that we measure our impact on the earth is called the ecological footprint. So if you do an eco footprint calculation, oftentimes the average American is going to require more than one Earth if everybody in the world lived the way that they did. And that starts to put things into focus, to think about how can we live our lives so that way if everybody lived the same way as we do, we'd only need one planet, because there is no backup planet or no place for us to go to. Yes, there is exploration towards Mars, but I don't think that humans should count on that, because that's really just another place to put humans. We know that Mars cannot sustain human life the way that we know it without requiring constant inputs from Earth. I know that was a lot of information. Your key takeaways should be the 5 major environmental indicators and their trends, and a little bit about what it means to live sustainably. Let me know what your questions are, and I will address those in class.